While the Dutch painter Rembrandt was known for his love of hedonistic pleasures of the world as a young man, someone who lived large, who ended up losing everything, and then returned home, he became, in his later years, a very spiritual man. But he also had another side to him in some other seasons in his life. In the 1640s, just a few years after he painted his first prodigal son picture, where he was the image of the younger prodigal son, he was a man consumed with deep resentments. He wasted much of his time, his money, his energy on court cases, seeking to put a woman away into an insane asylum and to keep her there. He made a lot of enemies over those years by his arrogance and his judgmental behavior. Rembrandt was as much the younger prodigal son in the parable of the prodigal son as he was also the elder brother in that parable. And some believe the fourth person there on the far right-hand side, that is the elder brother. His hands sternly clasped, a look on his face as his father welcomes home his younger brother. While both younger and older sons needed to come home, needed healing, love, and forgiveness, the hardest conversion to go through is the conversion of the one who stays home and is the obedient child, the one who does everything right. In my household, when I was growing up, who was that? No, wasn't I. Not only did the younger son who left home to look for freedom and happiness and purpose in life in a far distant land, not only did he get lost, but the older son who stayed home was also more and more lost day by day. Outwardly, the elder brother, the oldest son, did everything right that a good son is supposed to do, and yet inwardly he walked away from his father. He did his duty. He worked hard every day. He fulfilled all of his obligations running the farm, and especially with his younger brother gone, he had to do double duty, covering his responsibilities and the younger brother's responsibilities. But he grew to be increasingly unhappy and feeling like a prisoner inside himself. In the family unit, in your family unit, your family of origin, and then your family that you've grown up with as an adult, did you have a perfect family? Raise your hands. Lloyd, put your hand down. In the typical family unit, the older child easily grows up feeling that they have the weight of responsibilities from the parents upon them, that they must be the model child. The eldest child wants to live up to the family expectations and the extended family expectations, and indeed, in some situations, the societal expectations, by being obedient and dutiful. They want to please their parents, please the family, please everybody. And they often fear being a disappointment to their parents. But they also experience a deepening envy and resentment towards the younger siblings, who typically are less concerned with pleasing and obedience, and instead seem to be more and more interested in living life large their own way, doing as they please. I'm not the eldest child. In fact, was the fourth eldest child of 5. But I also became the eldest son. As an adult, I sought to do all those proper things to comply with my professors in order to graduate. in order to move on, in order to fulfill the expectations of my church, my presbyteries, everybody. I have, I think, most of the time, worked hard in my life and at my life. The obedient and dutiful life of which I had been proud of, and for which a few have praised me and patted me on the back over the years. And here's a little side question for you. Boy, can we ever become much more dutifully obedient when people praise us, can we not? Oh my. But sometimes that can feel like a real burden that I can't throw off. Honestly, I don't enjoy knowing that I've been the younger prodigal son. But I also don't enjoy discovering that I am every bit the older prodigal brother, the elder son in this story. In his complaint to his father, did you hear it again? I'm going to remind you a few times, just in case you're not familiar with complaining. All these years I have slaved for you and never disobeyed your orders, yet you never once offered me a baby goat for me to celebrate with my friends. You never once let me have a party. You never once gave me a keg of beer for me and my friends to have a great time together. In his complaint, we can see that obedience and duty are heavy burdens, that service has become slavery. Our inner resentments towards those who are not living the right way, according to our perceptions and definitions of what is right, those that we shake our heads at and wonder about what on earth is preventing them from getting with the program here, please, reveals our own inner lostness. How many of us have stayed home and done all the right things, but have become just as lost as both these sons in this story? How many of us have ever become angry with somebody in the family? Riley's the first one to have his hand up, people. Thank you, Riley. Your honesty is wonderful. She's right. Very true. If you have ever been angry with a family member before, please raise your hands. Oh my. And then, what's one of the sidekicks of anger? Envy. And resentment. And bitterness. And jealousy. And judgmentalism. And condemnation then follow suit. And then we discover that we are indeed a slave in our inner selves. These things in our lives are so pernicious. They are so destructive and damaging to the human heart and soul. You know, there's something so beautifully clear-cut in the younger son's behavior. His was a classical human failure with a straightforward resolution, was it not? Repentance and restoration. It was easy to identify. But the lostness of the elder son is much harder to identify. After all, he did everything right. He was doing the proper things. He was the obedient one. Do any of you have a fair-haired child in the family? My brother, Richard, always been the fair-haired, the golden child in the family who could never do anything wrong. It makes you want to, you know. Yeah, enough said. He was obedient, law-abiding, this elder brother, hard-working, He was likely the one considered to be the model son. My parents boasted of Richard. Oh my goodness, he worked so hard. Look at his grades. And he's got his engineering degree. And then he went and got his master's in engineering degree. He is so beautiful. He is our son. Oh. I love him dearly. I really do. I couldn't help it that he got all his degrees before I did because he's older than me, so of course he's going to get all those degrees. Outwardly, the elder son in this parable, nearly faultless. Nearly the operative word. But when confronted with his father's joy, his contagious, enthusiastic joy at the return of the younger son, a darkness erupts and blows up within this elder son. Now it's the elder son's turn to disgrace his father, to shame his father. He refused to go in to what might have been the biggest social event his father had ever hosted, this party to celebrate the life of his younger son coming home, and forcing the hand of his father to leave all of his guests and come outside to speak with him. The elder son publicly casted a vote of no confidence in dear old dad. That's where we see his immense resentment, pride, selfishness, and judgmentalism that must have been growing. These things just don't happen overnight. Must have been growing over the years. I wonder sometimes, not that I'm going to encourage either way, but I wonder sometimes which is worse, which does more damage. And then as I wonder about it, I realize they both do the same. They both damage and destroy. The lusting selfishness of the younger son, or the judgmental resentment of the older son. The lostness of this older son is so hard to reach precisely because it is so closely wedded to the desire and the drive to be good, to be the model son, and to be accepted because he is the model son. I know what that's like. I know it all too well. As I, like the elder brother, elder son in this story, have tried for years. How old am I now? For too many years of those 57 years. I've tried to be loved and welcomed and accepted because of what I do. I know what it's like to try to be worthy of being an example to others. And you know what that does? It tends to produce a moralistic intensity inside that makes it more difficult to enjoy my Father's house, to enjoy simply being in my Heavenly Father's presence. In fact, the younger son could represent the type of people. There's two types of people in the world. Did you know that? The first type is like the younger son, who try to find their happiness and their love and their purpose through self-discovery, living life the way they want, on their terms. While the older son is like the other type of people, who try to find love and happiness and purpose through moral conformity, through trying to fulfill the expectations of family, friends, and society at large. And Jesus is saying, through this parable, both of these approaches fall short. Listen to the elder son's complaint again. Look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders, yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours You can see the spit coming out of his mouth when he says that to his dad. When this son of yours, who has squandered your property with prostitutes, comes home, you kill the fattened calf for him. Do you hear the complaint of his self-righteous heart? His self-pitying, jealous words? It's the complaint of his heart, the heart that feels it never received what it felt was its due, what he deserved. It's the complaint that says, I have tried so hard. I've done so much, and still I haven't received what others get so easily. Why am I taken so much for granted, while others pay so much attention to those who take life so easily and casually, and are even living life as screw-ups? This elder son is saying to his father that it is completely not fair. Oh my. It's unjust. The father, how could he dare to bring the younger son back into the family? Which ultimately means he's back in again as an heir. And now the estate is shrunk already because of him. And that means the elder brother gets a smaller share of the estate. How fair is that? Not. On top of that, the younger son has now done nothing to earn any bit of share of the estate that's left. And he, the elder brother, has worked all his life hard and faithfully without any so much as a word of thanks, a pat on the back, a word of encouragement, a little time to celebrate life with his friends. The younger son essentially told his dad drop dead when he asked for his share of the inheritance. But the older son now further dishonors his dad. Did you notice how he addressed his dad in his complaint? What did he call him? Look! Exclamation mark. Nothing else. Not father, not dad, certainly not Abba in the language of the day. Look. How many of you complain from time to time? Show your hand, sorry. How many of you enjoy complaining? Don't show your hand. Complaining is self-perpetuating and so counterproductive. And the more we elder children complain, the more we judge, the more we tend to end up with what we fear the most. Further rejection. Further, what we perceive to be a greater lack of recognition. The elder son in this parable, when he heard from the slave about the return of his younger brother, he could not feel relief or gratitude. He only felt deep resentment and what he thought must have been incredibly righteous anger. His only option, apparently, was withdrawal. The experience of not being able to enter into and share the joy of someone else is the experience of a resentful heart. The elder son's inner complaint and state of his heart paralyzed him from entering into the joy of his father at the younger son's safe return. The elder brother was truly lost in complete darkness of his own sin, while resenting the forgiveness and the freedom given to his younger brother. Did you hear part of his complaint? This is the third and last time I'm going to tell you it. Because I never disobeyed you. The elder son is losing out on the joyous celebration of love and forgiveness and of life because of his perceived goodness. It is not his wrongdoings keeping him from the party. It is his self-made righteousness that is stopping him from going in. Both sons actually were just as interested in what the father could give them of the estate instead of what the father was offering to both of them, himself. A real relationship with the Father in all of his unfailing love. Sometimes we wonder, I gotta tell you, teeny miracle happened in my family last week. My mother and my eldest brother, speaking of elder brothers, my mother and my eldest brother, who have not spoken to each other for 6 years since my eldest sister died, they didn't even speak at her funeral, they got together for lunch on Wednesday. Amazing. It's a step in the right direction. We're praying and hoping for that. Although I spoke to both of them, mother and son, my brother, and they didn't have much positive to say about the other. But it's a step. Have lunch together. And sometimes we wonder, what's going to happen? What's going to happen to my brother and my mother? Sometimes we wonder in this parable, what's going to happen to the elder son? Did he let himself eventually be persuaded by his father to celebrate love and forgiveness? Did he eventually go in and embrace his younger brother? Would he ever eat at the same table as his father and his brother again? Was the elder brother willing to let himself be found by the same gracious love and forgiveness that the Father lavished on both, or tried to lavish on both? Was he willing to confess that he also was a sinner in need of forgiveness and acknowledge that he's no better than his younger brother? We just don't know. Unlike a fairy tale, parables don't usually provide a fairy tale ending. In this parable, the prodigal son leaves us to face one of life's hardest spiritual choices. Trust God or to not trust God in his free gift of all forgiving love for me. I'm the only one who can make that decision for me. And I can also choose daily and moment by moment whether I will live in that gift of God's free love and forgiveness or not. In response to the Pharisees, the scribes, the religious leadership of the day, and their complaint, their huge complaint, look, all these years I've slaved for you. I've never disobeyed you. Oh, wait a minute, that's the elder brother. Get it? The Pharisees, the religious leaders of the day. In their complaint, what was their complaint that set this story off in Luke 15? Who's Jesus hanging out with? The elders of the church? Or the riffraff on the other side of the railroad tracks? The people who were unlucky in love and lost everything and lived large and recklessly. The religious leaders complained that Jesus welcomed and ate with sinners and tax collectors and prostitutes. And Jesus confronted their self-righteousness, their judgmentalism. He confronted their lostness in their sin by telling this story, focusing one set of people, those that Jesus hung out with, as the younger son in this parable, and them, the religious leaders of his day, as the elder brother in this parable. And how will they respond to God's free gift of love, forgiveness, welcome, and embrace? How did they? From what we know of the Scriptures, Jesus didn't finish the story. But from what we know of the Gospels, how else did the religious leaders respond to Jesus? Well, what did they do? They continued grumbling and complaining hard and long that it just wasn't fair, that these sinners don't deserve it, and doesn't Jesus recognize what he's doing wrong? And oh my goodness, they complained so loud and long until they plotted to to have him put to death. I like even less the discovery that I am the elder brother. This parable challenges me to face my own poverty, my complete inability to root out my resentments, my complaints, my judgmental jealousies in my life. And they're deeply anchored in my soul, right next to my self-righteousness, right next to me, the younger prodigal son in this story. And there is only one God who can heal me, the younger son and the older son, enabling me to join him in this party today and every day. And I, for one, am very grateful and so thankful that the Lord lavishes his embrace of gracious love and forever welcome upon me and upon you. Thanks be to this God of ours. Amen.